Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator. And tonight I'm going to be doing an open mic stream, um, just opening the floodgates, as it were, and having people on. And yeah, um, I guess we'll sort of see where it goes. So I'm gonna post the link to this video on Twitter or on in some Discord channels, and I'm gonna give it a few for people to show up, and then I'll put the link in the good old chat. And I'm seeing how my audio sounds real quick, so give 1 second. I have a new my brilliant new method that I figured out, so I don't have to rely on the chat to tell me if my audio sucks. Oh well, if Bob Sadler is here, then we can get the party started then. Uh, so okay. Yeah, let me just make this more phallic than it already is. Um, 1 second, guys. I'm just gonna post these links real quick. Okay, so does that sound good? It sounds good to me. Oh, there's nothing wrong with it. I just think it's kind of funny having this right in front of my face. So I've had so many blessings this week that I almost want to convert to theism. I'm not gonna lie. So I've had so many good things happen this week that it almost makes me want to believe in God, but and by almost I mean like 0.000 like 1%. Not at all. Okay. I'm so bad at multitasking. Okay, I'm just gonna send this link because I told somebody I would let them know when I went live. So okay. So um I've been trying to recently I've been trying to save up to get a new computer, a desktop PC, because right now I'm using this shitty like $100 Chromebook laptop that I got at Walmart, like literally the cheapest one, to do StreamYard, and it's got like a stick of butter for RAM, so it's so bad that if I tried to open a tab, like I had to, that's why I'm doing stuff on my phone, because if I tried to open a tab in my browser right now and go to like YouTube to check comments or go to Twitter, it like literally won't load unless I exit out of the stream completely. Am I going to do videos? Of course I'm going to do videos, more videos. I'm constantly working on new content for the channel. Every single day I'm editing videos, recording audio. I don't film content really because I don't have like a camera, but I'm constantly thinking of new ideas for videos, editing videos, doing streams, um, contacting people that I want to come on the channel, preparing for interviews, like with my interview with Jackson, writing questions, um, promoting stuff on Twitter. So I'm always working on new content. There's always stuff that's going to be coming down the pipeline. Oh, Okay. Yeah, that thank you. That last interview was excellent. Thank you. Yeah, the interview with Cindy, Miss Cindy, I think it's almost to 1,000 views. I haven't checked it, but it's been up for less than 48 hours, and I believe it's going to hit 1,000 views tonight. So that's awesome, and credit to her because she's somebody who's been through a lot, and I didn't want the situation to seem like I was just trying to exploit her to get content for my channel. I mean, obviously I am getting content for the channel, but I think I'm also helping her get her message out and helping her to sort of vent and even just to have somebody to talk to. Like she called me earlier today and we talked for like 30 minutes and I didn't record that. Like I'm not going to post it or anything. But because I know that if you're in a situation like that where you have just gotten out of a relationship, a marriage even, um, and it's one thing to have a breakup, but to have something like that happen, you could feel very alone. It's a very isolating feeling. So that's why I really wanted to try and make her feel like she's not the person who is at fault in the situation. Like you could say that, oh, she shouldn't have trusted Kent or she should have heeded people's warnings. But the truth is that Kent is extremely manipulative. He's extremely good at what he does. And we don't know the inner workings of what happened. We don't know how we're just we're really just speculating on most things other than what she's told me. So I'm not going to assign blame to her. Obviously, Kent is the bad guy in the situation. It's obvious.
Hey there.
No, Brian, I don't think I can hear you. Can you hear me? Oh wait, hold on a second. I gotta
Um,
turn my headphones on. Hold on a second.
I
One
can't hear
second.
you.
I gotta pair my headphones with my laptop.
I'm sorry, what? I can hear you.
Okay. I should be able to hear you now.
My phone's almost dying anyway. But we can talk. Yeah, I feel bad for the lady. Sydney.
Yeah, me too. I definitely felt bad for her.
Yeah. And I even made a video about that.
Yeah, I
And I
saw that.
what?
I saw that.
Yeah. I don't care if the fans attack me or whatever. It's just that like Kent is such a cruel bastard.
Yeah. He's heartless.
Yeah, why does he do those things?
It's because he's a narcissist and he's a pathological liar, among other things. But honestly, I couldn't tell you.
I feel sorry for Eric because he brainwashed Eric, in my opinion.
Yeah. Um, yeah, Eric, really, if you think about it, Eric had no chance other than to be a young Earth creationist. There was no way that he could turn out to be anything other than that, because it's not like he could publicly come out as like an atheist or something and go against his dad. Like, he had to be part of the family business, as it were. And I mean, I'm sure that Eric believes that stuff, but it seems obvious to me that Eric Hovind is not as bad as his father. He's not as much as a grifter. I mean, Eric is definitely kind of an asshole, but it's obvious that Kent is way, way worse.
Yeah. So how are things? I haven't talked to you in quite a while.
Good. I was gonna say that I recently got some money because the college that I was going to an online school before COVID started, and then when that happened, I took a break from going there. And I tried to enroll again, but I didn't finish the enrollment process. And then I kept getting telemarketing calls from the school trying to get me to finish enrolling. Like, they were endlessly calling me. And then I got a letter in the mail and it said that it was from the FTC versus the my school, and they basically said that my school had hired some companies, and these companies, instead of helping people like enroll or get information about the school or sign up for the military, they were aggressively telemarketing people and I think trying to collect people's info. And so the FTC sued them, and I got some money from the settlement in the mail. Like, I just randomly got a check in the mail that I wasn't expecting at all.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. And so I used that to order some parts for a new computer, but computer parts right now are really in short supply. So the parts are going to have to be delivered from Dallas. So I'm going to get that stuff on like Tuesday. But like graphics cards, it's really hard to find any graphics cards right now. Like, the store I went to had none at all. Like, it was crazy. But yeah, so
You said there were
I'm
multiple good things, right? So it was you're adding RAM to your computer, right?
well, I got all new part. Like, I got everything from a new desktop PC.
Nice, congrats. I remember, man, mine is so old, so I bet it's a good feeling. I bet I can envision getting a new computer out of, and it was out of nowhere too, right?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting this at all, and it was for like $1,600.
Nice.
Which, like I opened the envelope and I was like, wait, what? I was shocked, honestly. Like, I was like shaking. But and I gave so I gave part of the money I gave to my mom, and then the rest of it I basically spent on all of the components for my new computer.
Yeah, that must be a good feeling. What else happened?
Monopoly, Bank Eric collect 1,600.
Yeah, like it was pretty crazy. And then like I had I did this video on the channel that's been getting a lot of views today, and a lot of people like the video. So that was the other thing. So I've been having good things happen this week. So that's what I was saying.
Was it with Eric Hovind? Wait, sorry, Kent Hovind's wife or ex-wife?
His ex-wife. So he's been married 3 times, and this is the 3rd one.
So this is his 3rd wife. I was gonna ask that, not his original wife.
Yeah, his first wife was Jo Hovind, and they were married for like 40 years. And then Kent went to jail, and she went to jail for a year. And she got out of jail, and then for 8 years, she didn't divorce Kent. So she waited for 8 years for Kent to get out of jail. and she didn't divorce him until Kent got out and was like kind of treating her and Eric Hovind like crap and like publicly like smearing them, and then Kent married Mary Toko, and she left like just a few months later, and Mary Toko's best friend was this woman named Cindy, and after Mary left, then Cindy stayed and she married Kent, and then now Cindy has left. So I guess Kent is single now.
Wow, you're like an expert.
Yeah, well, I have a degree in Hovindology, so from PragerU.
I didn't know who Kent Hovind was until maybe a few months ago.
Man,
I
you're
had
lucky.
seen one of his videos that when he was much younger, but I didn't know that was him.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, AJ?
Hey, how's it going? Yeah,
Good.
I've seen his older videos, and really the funny thing is that a lot of the stuff he says is the exact same thing. He repeats a lot of the same stuff. It's not all the same, but
Oh, cows produce cows.
Yeah, well, it like he'll get corrected on something, and he'll drop it for a little while, and then like I guess he'll forget that he was corrected on it, and he'll start saying it again. Like the claim that dinosaurs are just like 900-year-old lizards. I hadn't heard that one in a while. I thought that he had like finally recognized how dumb that was, and then just the other day he said it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I'm gonna turn your volume down just a hair, Marshall. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's been corrected on things like his slide about where he's talking about how carbon dating doesn't work, and he talks about a mammoth where they supposedly carbon dated one part of the mammoth and they got one date, and then they carbon dated a different part and they got a different date, but it was actually two different specimens that had been submitted years apart. And so Kent says like he doesn't show that slide anymore, but he's always talking about like his DVD set, which contains, old material, and it has that slide on it. You know what I mean? So he's still selling that stuff. And like I remember one day Kent he was on Matt Slick's Discord, and he was taking questions from people. So like I called in, and I told Kent that, because I don't know if you've ever seen, like he has these like CSE class videos, and there's one where he talks about genetics and he like gets everything wrong that he says. Like he's describing a DNA helix as like a big like a ladder that's like a twisted ladder, and he says that like the rungs of the ladder would represent genes, but they're not genes. They would be base pairs. The gene,
Right,
a gene is like a gene is like a section, would be a section of the DNA helix. So I called him and I told him that he had gotten that wrong, and I asked him if he was going to correct that, because like I said, he still sells the CSE class DVDs, and if you look in the playlist tab of his channel, he still has that video listed there. And he was like trying to sort of backtrack, but he couldn't say that he knew he was wrong, basically. And he was like, oh, well, I don't know how I would like correct that. I'm thinking, well, like you could just record a new video with like correct information, but yeah, he said that he would fix that, but he hasn't done anything to fix it.
Yeah, I don't think he doesn't care about the truth, I guess. Like he's a grifter, and he'll just repeat things, I guess, that his audience or whatever people that follow him like to hear.
The frustrating thing is that people use these in place of like actually teaching their kids science, and like he's wrong about things that he doesn't even have to be wrong about.
You're roboting, Marshall. Yeah, you wrote about.
Yeah, I couldn't. I think I couldn't hear what he said. Yeah, it might be better if you turn the camera off.
Yeah. Is that any better?
Yeah. Still bad.
Yeah, not really. well, now he has got Matt Powell like repeating stuff too. Like Matt Powell like repeats everything Kent says, like an obedient monkey.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. It seems like you have these like talking heads or whatever on YouTube, and then people just parrot whatever the talking heads say. It seems like.
Well, I don't want to say I feel bad for Matt Powell, but I almost feel bad when I see like Kent. He keeps asking Matt Powell like to like move to Lennox, like, and I know that, and like obviously Matt Powell doesn't want to do that, and I can tell that he's like uncomfortable when Kent says it. You know what I mean? So I almost feel bad for him, because he's always saying, "Oh, you should move down to Dinosaur Adventureland," and like I would just say, like, Matt, like, don't do it, like, do not do that.
Cute couple together, though.
Yeah,
And
well,
Do you like slave labor? Try Dinosaur Adventureland.
yeah, well, that's a typical thing that happens at cults where, because Kent works people really hard. Like he has people working all day. Like he has people working on the roof of a building when it's raining outside. And I think the reason like that cults do that is that you work people so hard so that they don't question anything. They're too tired to think for themselves, and that's a really common thing.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's like obvious that it might not be a full blown cult, but he definitely has some like cult tendencies. Have I reached out to Joe Hovind and Mary Toko? No, Mary Toko is like I don't like her at all. She is like the female Kent, and Joe Hovind, I would just leave her to her privacy. I wouldn't want to bother her because I doubt that she wants to talk about Kent or to go public with Kent. She got away from him, so I don't want to remind her of Kent.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you might just say whether you'd be open to because we're going to get back to her somehow.
You're still roboting.
I'll wait then.
Well, you might. Well, you could try to leave and come back, but whatever you want to do. Like usually your audio is fine, but yeah. I hate that. Like that's the thing on this Chromebook that I have. If I am streaming and if I try to share video, it'll make my audio roboting like that. Like I can't show a video and talk over it at the same time. It totally fucks up the audio because I don't have enough RAM on the computer or like enough bandwidth.
Yeah, it sucks. And I always have to wear my headphones because I can't barely hear sometimes you say.
Yeah,
and that's not with you. It's with like everyone because I have like an iPhone 7.
That's like an old iPhone.
Well, I don't care.
I have a Moto C4, and it's one of those ones where you can snap, like it has the Moto mods where you can snap a speaker onto the back of it. They're like magnetic. So the last time I had an iPhone was an iPhone 4.
Oh damn!
My audio any better?
Not really. I think one thing you could do is go into your StreamYard settings. I know you have your webcam turned off, but see if you can go to where the webcam settings are and turn the resolution all the way down to the lowest setting, even though it's not like you're not showing your webcam. Sometimes that helps.
Okay, let me see.
That's a good idea.
I hope that Mr. Batman doesn't show up out of nowhere like last time.
Yeah,
Even though I wasn't. Even though
Will
I
you join
wasn't
the
there that
channel?
well.
He showed up to one of my streams last time, and I eventually had to kick in because he was just not letting anybody else talk and just going off his same script, and then he just started being a dick, and um, Amy Newman came in, and he was talking about his bullshit of the laws of logic or whatever. But as soon as he's added Amy, he immediately started just talking shit about her and saying that she was a pervert and misgendering her and all this stuff. And so I got pissed off and kicked him.
Yeah, it's
I think he's of the
ridiculous.
I think he's of the opinion that like homosexuals should be stoned to death or something, which I think is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. I remember I've seen a stream, I think, with him and like Raging Atheist, where he was saying something like that. Like that is that's what like Steven Anderson has said too, you know.
Yeah, but he was a drunken bastard at the time with Raging Atheist.
Yeah, like Mr. Batman, he says like, "Oh, I used to be like an alcoholic and like a drug user." And I'm thinking like, I'm pretty sure you still get drunk, Mr. Batman, because sometimes he sounds like he's slurring and he sounds fucked up, you know.
Yeah. And I saw him drinking a wine at that video, so he was probably drunk while drinking wine.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
not any better.
no, it's not.
No.
Are you on your phone?
Yeah, that's all I have.
Well, maybe you can. Maybe if you get maybe you can get closer to your router, or maybe I would reset my phone and then try to come back in.
Sorry, I didn't think about doing that. I don't have Wi-Fi. But yeah, let me just reset the whole thing.
All right.
What about that Darth Hopkins or whatever his name is? I know I'm mixing his name. Is it Dark or is it Darth Hopkins?
It's Darth Dawkins. Like it's a mixture of Richard Dawkins and Darth Vader.
Oh, it's Darth. You said Hopkins, right?
No, it's Darth Dawkins. Dawkins with a
Darth
D.
Dawkins. Darth Dawkins. Ah, man, what? I don't know why I said Dawkins.
Yeah, I'm not going to Bible boot camp. I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be caught dead at that. But
Me
that's
neither.
the interesting thing is that Kent. I know P Mars. You said that you saw that video with the guy that got kicked out of Dinosaur Adventureland. That I put on my channel, right?
I saw that video. Well, I saw a video of some fella that was kicked out on a different video.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah. That guy Alec Cox. He was at DAL and they like asked him to leave, and he was working on Kent's like new church building, and that's why I was saying that Kent he makes videos, or he wants a new building to film his videos in, but he's making people rush to finish this building before the 4th of July when his boot camp weekend is. And so he's like cutting corners and not following code and not building it safely. And that's why in that video they said that one of the big like pieces of sheet metal from like the roof fell and hit this guy on the hand and cut his finger really bad. And so Kent like and Kent at the beginning of his videos, he's been asking for people to donate old wood from their barns like tear down their barns and donate the old wood, and I'm thinking that wood would be like rotted, wouldn't it? Hello, Speed. Speed, are you there?
I am. I was just
Why-
having audio problems.
Yeah, that's been a theme on this this stream.
Yeah, for a while you were. I guess when I was muted, you were making staticky noises. So I was just talking
that's
to
Ryan.
Okay,
Ryan.
I was just talking to Otangelo.
Oh, really?
What?
Yeah,
Oh,
Otangelo.
I was
Wait,
saying, Ryan, your headphones, you got a lot of background noise because I think you're rubbing the microphone of your headphones. Like, I keep hearing background noise.
Oh. I'm really sorry.
Where did
My
you
windows
talk
are
to
open.
Otangelo?
On Germania, Immutable's over there right now. Marshall was just over there, and then he was over here for a while. I decided that a choice between Danny and Otangelo, I'm picking Danny.
Yeah, Otangelo. He's kind of a prick. Like, I was doing a stream where I was reading from Kent Hovind's book. I did a whole stream talking about Kent's case getting thrown out, his suing the government for $500 million. And then at the end of the stream, I was reading two like stories out of Kent's book. Why on earth did God let this happen? And like I thought it was kind of funny. And then Otangelo comes in and he's like, "What's the point of this stream?" And I told him, "It's whatever the fuck I want it to be. It's my stream, Otangelo. It doesn't have to have some deep meaning. Like I'm just entertaining my viewers, you dick."
It's interesting that I think it's interesting that he feels the need to defend Hovind.
Oh yeah,
isn't it?
Well, like we were saying, he parrots. No.
Okay.
You're pretty bad body.
It's literally been the exact same every single time you've come back in.
Okay.
He was fine over on Germania. So
yeah, it always sounds fine on when he's on your channel.
Yeah, why? What would be the difference? Oh, because it's your bandwidth that we're using.
No,
So
that shouldn't affect it. It would be his connection.
Well, I don't know. Does everything go through your local computer and then back up? I'm not sure. It should go server to server, shouldn't it?
Well, nobody else was roboting.
Yeah.
And
I'm not roboting.
Yeah, and I mean, I know Marshall has a fairly like ghetto connection. You know what I mean? Like he's always joining on his phone.
Yeah.
Which I do sometimes, if I'm too lazy to set up my microphone and stuff. But
looks like we lost. Danny went over to Germania. Wow, what a traitor!
Well, at least he was saying something. Like the past 2 days on your stream, he joined and didn't say anything for like the entire stream.
Yeah, he was in a mood. He said enough to get himself booted.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty funny.
No, he isn't over on Germania. I was looking at the wrong screen.
You still don't like him?
Oh, I like Danny.
AJ.
It's just that he's like.
If I didn't like him, I wouldn't have added him.
He's like having a toddler.
Oh.
And occasionally you've got to put him in the corner, and you've got to be a little stern with him because sometimes they get unruly. Sometimes they're in a pissy mood. And so you just put him in the corner for a while.
I see.
I saw Orge in the chat. If he wants to come in, but I'll put the link in again because I'm pretty much just adding anybody. Like I really don't give a fuck.
Yep.
As long as you don't have fucked up audio, that's the only thing. Like the only rules I have for my stream are like basically the most important thing is like if you have fucked up staticky audio, like I basically can't have you on because you're going to ruin the video for when people watch it on YouTube. I don't want anybody to say anything that would violate the TOS and like get my video taken down, obviously, and just like basically like don't be an asshole, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I was summoned.
Yeah.
Or gay.
Yeah. So I was rewatching Speed Stream the other day when we were talking about like the Earth and like the Earth's magnetic field and stuff. That yeah, that was interesting. And then Leo came in and he was wondering where I went, because the thing is, I almost always join Speed Stream right from the very beginning, and then I eventually get bored and I just leave without saying goodbye because I don't want to like tell everyone goodbye.
Look. Jeez! Ow! Ouch!
Well, it's not because it's not because I get bored because of you, Speed. I just am like,
it's okay.
Everyone
To
else
say
is
it to his
talking.
face.
Okay,
he's very boring.
Yeah, I think it's better just to leave than like people interrupt the conversation just to say goodbye. I'm like, why don't you just leave?
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it feels impolite to just leave, so I always interrupted. And
Yeah.
I won't do that. I guess I'll just bounce.
I usually will type something in the private chat like, "Hey, I'm gonna bounce out" or whatever. But sometimes I'll stay the whole stream. But like, I don't know if like Peter comes in, then it's like, I don't know. I don't know about this guy. I think I'm gonna leave.
Yeah, I'm gonna get harsher about. I think moderating the people that I really care about and don't want to offend, like Peter, and. I just got to get better, because it ends up being just a shit show if you don't moderate at all, right? Like, I just tuned into Germania and Immutable got on with praise, and they started over talking each other, and it just got to be a mess. So I tuned out, and then I saw your notification come up, and I saw that Danny was in here, and I had to make a decision. But
Immutable and Praise are talking right now.
Oh, they are, yeah.
What channel?
God, am I advertising somebody else's channel here? I'm not going to do that. Not telling
I
you.
won't go over there, but what I don't think Praise's stream. Is Immutable have a channel?
No, he's on Germania with Otangelo, Praise, some guy named Animated, and Red Fang, and Germania. So,
I'm unfamiliar with that channel.
he takes his stuff down after he has it up for 3 days, and then he takes it down.
Oh, okay.
I don't know,
Ooh, I
which doesn't help his channel much.
Is he
Yeah,
a
well.
Christian?
No, I don't think so.
I've never heard of Germania. I'm not familiar with that.
Shit, he's got 1.35, 1,300 subscribers. So, wow, I didn't think he had that many. Anyway, but they're talking about reasons to believe in God. Otangelo was running his argument on ribosomes. He was offended by what I said today. And then
It's not an argument. It's not an argument he makes. It's the same 5 sentences over and over again.
Yeah, I said you don't need the ribosome for life, and he really, really took exception to that. And then Maddox was over there. As soon as I came in, Maddox ran away like a toddler.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yep.
Hi, Amaretto. Yeah, sorry. My StreamYard sometimes, if there's 5 people, then another person comes in the backstage. It's kind of hard for me to see it. I'm like, oh, there's another person waiting.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I'm just kind of listening, and I'm kind of bummed. I was looking forward to the modern day debate tonight, and it looks like somebody has backed out.
Really?
So,
with Tom Jump?
Yep.
I
was looking forward to seeing him get steamrolled on critical race theory.
Is that what I was on?
Was it with Bosch or somebody else?
It was.
Gets steamrolled.
It was with. It says versus Phoenix. So hold on.
So what was Tom's side of what side was he on?
I'm going to assume, based upon his recent debates that he was probably arguing against critical race theory.
Really?
I would love to talk to someone about that because I've yet to hear someone discuss critical race theory and bring up any lesson plan or any classroom and methodology. It's all just talking
It's
about
conservative talking points right now.
Anything about.
A lot of it, and this is the thing. If you know, I literally was in the modern day debate chat, and Stripper Liquor was trying to ask me about how I felt, and I'm like, well, what are the basics that you're talking about that you're saying is being reported on? Because if you mean by basics, talking about actual how racism has affected America. And Black history, and you know how there has been so like I'm a white parent. Listen, you can see me on screen. I am paler than Casper, the friendly effing ghost. And I support teaching actual history. We have things like the Trail of Tears being whitewashed because in America, a lot of textbooks are from companies that are based in Texas and in conservative areas in the South. So, I support teaching actual history. You know, if maybe not to elementary school students, like you can introduce, you know, some concepts, though, I think in middle school and high school, because, you know, 16-year-olds can drive a car in this country, but you're saying they can't learn about actual history?
Right.
Well, you know, I was going to do a stream the other day about critical race theory, but I didn't because my people in the chat wanted to talk about the Dr. Dan debate more, but I had actually gone on, I think, a website about critical race theory that asks like 6 different questions, and I wrote out my answers to them. Maybe I could read one of them.
Well, I'm wondering if Danny's listening right now. I think Danny's taught or teaches high school.
Yeah,
do you have any?
Do you? I didn't know.
I've taught high school as well, but Danny's taught something probably more relevant to this. Has your district brought up CRT at all or not?
Honestly, if someone asked me what critical race theory was, I'd be uncomfortable because I still kind of
don't know.
Yeah. It just
Sorry.
seems to be a non-issue. But I mean, I don't know anything about it. I don't know what the disagreement is.
So I can share something with you guys in a minute.
Could I tell a little story?
Before you go, Mrs. Batman, I wanted to jump on Danny's point. That's an excellent point, Danny, because so many people are just talking about it, and no one really knows what it is because we don't have an actual example of it being taught.
Yeah,
and that's why it's such an annoying conversation.
So I'm gonna post something in private chat if you guys want to like take a gander at some point. I actually saw this earlier today on Dylan Burns' channel. He was doing a review of a interview Joy Reid did on her TV program against a conservative, I think it's Christopher Rafuo on critical race theory. And basically it's what critical race theory is kind of becoming. And I think, you know, Dylan touched a little bit on it. It's just becoming a dog whistle for anything racial related, specifically that conservatives hate. And it's becoming a dog whistle also for, this is liberal indoctrination in schools. I was watching another program, not from anybody on YouTube. This was I think MSNBC or something. It might have been Chris Hayes, but I think it was talking about how there's now becoming an even. Studies are showing that the GOP tends to most GOP voters tend to not have a college education compared to Democratic or more leftist voters now. So, and actually, conservatives that are being polled on, do they think that college is a good thing, basically, to TLDR it, are saying no in increasing numbers now. So there's this pushback now against college education. And it's funny because when you have a lot of people that grow up in these insular communities and then as young adults are going into a more diverse area for the first time in their lives, well, yeah, they're going to speak up against things that they see mommy and daddy doing or saying, you know, about, you know, Black people or Mexican people and, you know, just general bigotry and homophobia and stuff. So, yeah, you're going to gain a different perspective for sure.
Isn't that kind of a shift in the demographic of Republicans and Democrats? It used to be the opposite, where Democrats were your farmers and the uneducated workers, and the Republicans were more intellectual. I thought it seems like it's switched.
So I don't have any data in front of me, but speaking from like having, I'm in my early 30s, so I'm a millennial, but I have Gen Z? No, or is it Gen? My brother and sister are in their late 40s. My parents are baby boomers, and a lot of my family is older. So I can say that there has been, I think, more of a shift. Like my mother only has a high school education, but has always voted Democrat.
The Democratic Party like changed at some
The
point. I can't
Democratic
remember the year,
and the Republican platforms switched. Yeah, well,
so
not even
the Democratic
Johnson.
Party
It was
now,
actually
you
the
couldn't
civil
really compare
rights, in the civil rights area. After I think Lyndon B. Johnson signed a piece of legislation, the Dixiecrats basically left and went to the Republican Party. And so people who say that the Democrats are the founders of the KKK and everything else, it's like, well, you're not quite correct. You're not looking at it in a modern perspective.
Well,
and where the parties have
because you can't. Yeah, you can't. It's not a fair comparison to compare the current Democrats to the Democrats of
I'll post a video in the side chat. Jesse Dalamo's video on the Southern Strategy is a good video on this exact conversation. He was I think like a GOP strategist that left that group, and he explains why he left the GOP, and now he's a liberal YouTuber. So I think that'd be beneficial.
So
yeah, no, definitely.
What is GOP?
GOP is basically an abbreviation for the Republican Party. I can't remember the exact.
It's the Grand Party.
Grand.
Yeah.
So.
I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna read this thing I wrote real quick the other day because I forget where I found the site, but it asked I think it was Purdue from that college, and they had an explanation of critical race theory, and then they asked some questions, and I wrote some answers to them. So one of the questions was, how does racism continue to function as a persistent force in American society? And my answer was that after the abolition of slavery happened, just because it ended didn't mean that it didn't cause ripple effects throughout history that we're still dealing with today in America. Gerrymandering, redlining, voter ID laws, and other forms of systemic racism still affect people of color. And a lot of American cities have inner city areas that have low-income housing, underfunded schools, and high crime rates. And you have the school-to-prison pipeline and high teen pregnancy rates due to abstinence-only sex education, as well as legislation making reproductive care harder to get. And this seems designed to keep these people in an endless cycle where it's difficult to get out. And of course, there's obviously a problem with racism among the ranks of police officers.
I think that's a pretty good answer. I would also, so here's the complexity that I would bring into it. I'm a low income, technically single white parent. My son's biological other parent is not in the picture. I've been on Medicaid since I was 18. I've never made above 20 grand a year. I'm also disabled, so that kind of plays into some of that as well. So a lot of these issues definitely affect people of color. And, it's crazy to me because, I'm a white person that's not benefiting from generational wealth. My parents basically squandered any inheritance from my grandparents that myself and my siblings were supposed to get and everything else. So I guess maybe I share a perspective of economics also definitely play an issue into some of these as well.
Right.
It's not just African Americans that are in poverty. But I do agree, goodness gracious, Senator Cory Booker, I believe, when he was running for president, talked about, I believe his parents were basically almost redlined out of neighborhoods in New Jersey. And goodness gracious, that's less than 50 years ago. There's somebody in the modern day debate chat who's bragging. Well, I wouldn't say bragging. They're trying to say that they work in, I guess, for a financial institution, and they're saying that they were forced to deny people loans based upon their skin color. And this is fairly recent.
So
I live in New Jersey.
Okay, So I'm 70 years old, and when I was in grade school and high school, I lived in northern Minnesota, and I never saw a black person. There weren't any, right?
Yeah.
We had Native Americans, but I had no idea what racism was. I did understand classism because we were dirt poor, and there were people that were even poorer than us, and you got treated very badly if you had a bad car and you got pulled over by the police.
Yeah.
And you were roughed up and treated horribly. But then, okay, so we had history and civics, and they taught us that there was this civil war, and black people were given their freedom, and everybody lived happily ever after. So right around the time that Kennedy came into office and civil rights started, it was like a slap in the face for all of us who were teenagers at that time, because we were like, what? This doesn't sound like the America you taught us about, right?
Yeah.
They didn't teach us anything. And they lied about the Native Americans. They lied about everything.
Yeah.
And hence we entered this hippie protest era, right? And we were pissed because we had been lied to, and we had no idea that I had the idea that kind of injustice existed was so abhorrent to me. Even though I felt it, along class lines, right? It was much worse than that for black people.
Speed, what you're talking about is, to a lesser extent, but still a modern issue in education. I have a geography class I teach at a local college up here, and I'm actually grading some of the papers right now as I'm doing this. And the lack of education, it's simply not been told to high school students entering community college age that some of the stuff in the background, especially you get to Latin America or Oceania, the banana republics, the overthrowing of countries, stuff like that. The shit we did in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Most people didn't know we had a war in the Philippines. And that's something that is, I think, not discussed because it's purely bad.
And here's the thing, too, my goodness gracious, this is back when I was still living with Amy Newman. I think I was watching some of these Waiting for Superman documentaries that were on the American education system. So basically, the way that the American public education system is set up, you have different pathways for people that are wealthier or of a higher intelligence. They are given more education of a higher quality and geared towards management. This is back when America, 30 to 50 years ago, had way more manufacturing than what we have today. So you needed your worker bees, you needed your management bees, and you needed your, so the education system was kind of framed in that way. And I believe Waiting for Superman goes into that a little bit. And it's crazy. I also remember being a senior in high school, and I was 2005, 2006, and Oprah Winfrey did a whole big profile on education in America and how there was this one story in across the several shows she did stood out to me. It was a girl who was, I think, valedictorian of her school, but she wasn't prepared for college, and she was from a more rural area, I think, in the central southeast or Tennessee or something like that. But she's basically had to take remedial colleges and stuff like that. So we're also not, I think, preparing people as a whole in this country for the world we live in. I tried to get myself held back as a senior because I was I went to what is and was at the time purported to be the best school district in the state of Delaware. And I felt so unprepared. So
I agree.
I think we definitely need to do a better job at making sure that there's more equity in education. We can't let certain things get politicized. The truth about what happened to the Native Americans, Black people, how the U.S. government, has functioned to create
Chinese people
turmoil. Oh, I mean, yes, definitely. There's actually Eugene Lee Yang from the Try Guys, I believe, did something fairly recently about how the anti-Asian sentiment has kind of tied in, because there's a lot of people of color who will say, well, Asian people are racist against Black people too, or a lot of white people will point that out and try to say, and there's definitely some parallels though with how Asians have been treated, Asian immigrants and people of Asian descent have been treated here in the United States as well. Like, there's also for a lot of Asians, like the pressure or this idea, like you're the good minority, you're one of the good ones. And so, and this is the thing, like, this is going into like critical race theory. I think it's definitely something that should be explored, even just going in, like I've taken, basic sociology over the past year, and it's crazy to me, and things are kind of like, oh, well, and it's not to say that, race or, classism are the complete answers to all of, the ills that have happened. But I mean, it's definitely gives it puts things in a different perspective, and it makes you think. And I think that there's a lot of people who would rather not have certain topics explored because then their seats of power are at risk. Especially talking, in American politics, a lot of your GOP senators, they rely on people being undereducated. Look at the QAnon cultists. That's gained so much power, or
the like black Trump voters,
Candace Owens.
Yeah, they want to keep those people uninformed when it comes to voting and being informed about the actual differences. But see, the one thing is that Republicans and conservatives, they love to exaggerate or just make shit up. Like, if there's something they don't like they'll just lie about it.
Yeah.
I
don't know. I mean, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but I don't do politics.
Yeah.
Well,
I think a lot of it is based in like racial fear is probably almost a normal biological function, right? Being afraid of somebody different than you, and a lot of this stuff, the media, tends to create a feedback loop. The media allows us to sample things at a very, very twisted, in a very twisted fashion, right? We're not coming up with a good sample at all. We're just going to hear about the bad shit. Like right now, because of the media I've been watching, I'm almost afraid to walk into tall buildings. I'm afraid they're going to fall down. I mean, how real is that? I don't know. Anyway,
same with bridges.
A lot of us were afraid to go.
Like if I hear a bridge fall, like if that's in the news, if it's a bridge collapse, I get scared of bridges.
Like the one in Minneapolis that my kids almost ended up. They were 5 minutes north of that bridge, heading for it when it collapsed.
Oh no, that's. Oh man.
I don't think it's natural to like hate someone, or racism. I don't think it's really natural. I think it's just hate is natural. Like,
well, I think it's fear. It's based in fear.
I think we just have an innate. I think it's
subconscious bias.
It is.
I don't think it has to do with race though, because there's plenty of instances where people hate each other and they look the same. Like there's. Countries in Africa where they're killing each other and their skin color.
That, or they'll start, or people will start discriminating based on eye color or something silly like that.
So even in Africa, how
many
of you guys know about the Rwandan genocide and the history of that?
I think we hate. We have a natural desire to hate our neighbor, and then like racism becomes a justification to hate.
But in Rwanda, the two groups there had very subtle differences in their complexion and their social class, but it was enough. It was enough.
Yeah, the Belgians over time, like they actually, because I did a whole paper on this. This is something we covered this past semester. Like the Hutu and the Tutsis traditionally were like wealthier landowners, and the Hutus were more like your lower income farmers. So in essence, there was some classism there, but they highlighted that in our, as we were learning about it, like that the Belgians would do things like measure noses and stuff to determine who would be Tutsi and who would be Hutu. And then when the Belgians left, they basically gave power to the Hutus. And that kind of helped spur this whole, well, now it's like the Hutus are like, we're going to get revenge, but and now you have Paul Kagame, who's the gentleman who Paul Rasabaganya, I believe is. I might be butchering his last name, but basically the gentleman who's like, who ran the hotel in Rwanda that sheltered refugees is now basically, last I heard, awaiting trial. He was basically like, somebody diverted a flight and basically turned him over to the Paul Kagame's government. And, it's a mess. Like, things have definitely gotten, worse.
What you were saying about measuring noses, it reminds me of when back in like the 17 or 1800s when they would measure people's skulls and phrenology, and they thought they could tell something from that.
Yeah.
So does anybody, you went to school for psychology?
Who are the...
Me? Or...
Yeah.
I'm still in school. I just started back, actually.
There was this study that was done. They took, 50 children to an island or something, and they had this camp, and they did this study for a few months. And I forget, I think they divided them up into two groups. And one group decided that swearing was good, and the other one decided that swearing was evil. And it got so bad that they had to abandon the study before it was completed because they were afraid the kids were going to kill each other.
Wow.
And so they naturally divided into two groups.
It almost reminds me of the Stanford prison experiment, except I know probably a little bit different in terms of the setup, but yeah, it's.
I read that in a book probably about 10 years ago, and I'll be damned if I can find it on Google. I'm trying different searches.
Isn't that the worst when you know something and it's like, I can't find the reference and I know it exists because I read it. So, but yeah, no, if you find it, let me know. Like, I'm actually, I'm kind of going on a social work and sociology pathway. So like and I might end up getting my master's in psychology, or we'll see.
I have a book, an author recommendation for you if you're going into sociology. Judith Rich Harris. Check her out.
Who are the Hutus?
The Hutus, they're a tribe. They're not just in.
Who are the Hutus?
Who are they?
Yeah.
So the Hutus and the Tutsis are two different ethnic groups that were involved in the Rwandan genocide. Although the Hutus also don't just reside in Rwanda. I think now actually most of the Hutus reside outside of Rwanda. But they weren't just the tribes. The tribal boundaries, as far as like where they were located, wasn't just inside Rwanda itself, but they're the two main ethnic groups that were involved in the Rwandan genocide. And traditionally,
back in the 90s.
Yeah, like when we were kids. Oh my gosh! Well, at least when I was a kid. I remember talking about it in class. My teacher's like, "Yeah, President Bill Clinton said that was the lack of U.S. involvement was probably one of his greatest failures in his presidency." And honestly, a lot of it, there's a good case to be made that the reason that people didn't get involved sooner was because it was Black people in Africa. Who cares? Like, why do these, majority white nations care?
Right. And that's like colorism, which is a whole other thing. Like, people understand racism, I think, but colorism is is like a subset of that. And I think people didn't understand what that was back then.
Yeah.
Although it goes deeper than that, but that is part of it. And that's something that is still a problem today.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you even see it in, when I take a look at Black Twitter, there's still a lot of like pushback, among Black Twitter against society and other, and in parts of Black Twitter in of itself, because of how, light skin versus dark skin people are treated differently. And, I think it's a shame. And I don't know. I mean, I was talking about this, like, in the modern day debate, like, because someone was, like, trying to say that I wanted an excuse to be racist. And I was like, honey, I'm like, you can't see me, but it's like, I'm white. I'm also a parent. And I was like, and this is my 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 dad's mom's parents, so my great grandparents on my dad's side were actually in the KKK. My grandmother used to tell, after I got a chance to meet her when I was in my teens, was like, yeah, like I was forced to march with the Klan. She was actually, my nephew is mixed, and she was like one of the first people in my family to be okay with my nephew, and that experience, talking with her, and then also seeing how people would treat my nephew. Like, my nephew looks black. He doesn't look like he's actually like 3/4 white, and I look at my nephew and I see, I see a lot of these people that are being abused by police and stuff like that on my screen. And I'm like, that could be my nephew. My nephew is tall. My nephew is not necessarily, my nephew does have like a learning disability. So it's just like, it boggles my mind and it makes me afraid for my nephew. And I think it's a shame.
You know, it would be nice in this whole situation if there was like some underlying theory that was critical of these issues between the different races that we could learn about when we were younger, so that we have a better understanding as individuals about this stuff, so we don't have to be blindsided when we're adults by these topics. Wouldn't it just be nice if we could look at these race theories critically?
Maybe we can call it critical race theory.
It'd be weird, right? It'd be weird.
Something that you said earlier, Amaretto, I agree with, because about schools not really teaching people skills they actually use. Because if you think about the things that you do during an average day, and like how many of those skills were you taught like in high school? Like I wasn't taught how to balance a checkbook, or like
you don't balance a checkbook. You have online banking. You haven't balanced a checkbook in your life. Don't lie to me.
I agree.
I did learn in middle school. I did learn in like 1999 or 2000. And oh my God, I feel old saying that. But, I did learn how to balance a checkbook. But in general, financial literacy just isn't taught. And I'm sorry, how many cases do we have of like 17-year-olds and maybe 18-year-olds signing away their lives to
if we want to do this, I can fight back on this. I have no problem fighting this financial responsibility argument. You people were all taught financial responsibility, just none of you gave a shit because it was high school and you were seniors and you didn't have anything, you didn't want to care about math class. You know how to add and subtract. That's financial responsibility.
I don't think we were taught much of anything.
Yeah, I've taught these classes.
I feel like the education
system. You just didn't remember it.
I feel like the education system was just about indoctrinating me to be like an obedient slave to the system. And it's interesting.
You were taught how to add. Right? What is financial responsibility except for not spending more than you make?
This mentions education, and it says like propaganda can't reach people. Like if you're illiterate and uneducated, it's harder for propaganda to reach you. So what education does is it's kind of like pre-propaganda, and it lays the groundwork for us to be propagandized, which I thought that was kind of an interesting concept.
Well, if I may say, I'm sorry, you mind if I just make a counterpoint real quick? So, so I would say like we get some like basics, but like in general, I can say, we were not necessarily taught that, at least like I'm saying, like millennials in general, we're not necessarily taught that, I'm trying to think how to say this. We are kind of like a transitional generation too. And we're also, and not to say that people younger than the millennials aren't obviously affected financially to the same extent either, but we were kind of the generation that was up and coming into adulthood when the 2008 financial recession, like the Great Recession happened. So basically all the boomer advice we got from our boomer parents is basically like out the window. And my dad was a former business owner, and he did not teach me anything about financial literacy. Like, I don't know how to calculate like compound interest. I can't do certain things
So-
like that. And that's kind of what I mean. It's, we
Okay.
were basically taught, okay, here's the pathway. It's you go to school or you get involved with a union. You take out these loans, but you'll be able to pay them back. It's no big deal. You'll be able to find a good job. Like, you have to have a bachelor's degree to get a good job. Now it's like basically good luck finding a good job, even if you have a master's. So I'd say, like, how to get a utility bill, how to actually live and balance things as an adult. Like,
No,
a lot of those were things that your parents would typically have taught you, but a lot of us
I before we go any deeper, do we want to have this conversation or do we want to change topic away from it? Because I can go. I've gone with Danny before. I don't want to like, if you, I don't know what AJ, what you want to do with the stream.
I was going to say that I think it's weird in schools that if they even have sex education, why they just want to teach sex education and start there, but not sort of teach anything about actually dating someone and get like having a relationship. Why do we just start at sex? Because it's like, well, let's just leave it to them to figure out dating in high school in between classes. Like, that's never made sense to me.
And that's kind of, to go back to, like, people who end up becoming victims of abuse, like Miss Cindy, sometimes, like, the lack of knowledge about what constitutes abuse and how to actually treat people like decent human beings and stuff like that, or to how to recognize when people are treating you badly, sometimes that becomes like a slope just downward further and further into bad relationships and stuff like that. And I've been there. And, I think that's a tough thing too. Like, because there's so many different micro cultures here in the United States, as far as like, not even just talking religious communities, because I think honestly, this should be, I think some of the religious communities have some very toxic beliefs and some very sexist beliefs. But for me, I think, there's a lot of pushback upon what my school is teaching my children. And a lot of parents still view schools as glorified babysitters. And at the end of the day, they want to have 100% control over everything. So I think that's a complex subject. I do think we should be definitely teaching more about
I very much side with what you're saying, Amaretto. There is the what do we wish it would do, and there is the complexity of actually achieving it. Yeah. If you want to talk what AJ was saying about proper relationships, right? What is a healthy relationship? That is something that no two parents in a classroom will agree and will fight about it, me teaching it to their children, right? That's not something that you can really, outside of the basics of don't get beat. It's really hard to classify that, especially classify that in a high school level understanding, right?
Yeah, the only way I can really...
Should it be discussed? I agree. How do you do it is an entirely different debate.
The only, thing I can also say where maybe it might be more of a reality for that to happen on a larger scale is, like, with, charters or, like, private schools where, the parents agree to this curriculum because, of shared mutual values. So, and there are, not every private school is religious, but, there are, typically shared common values and creeds for a lot of, private schools, and then even charter schools and magnet schools. Generally, if you're taking your child to a charter or a magnet, you still value what that school offers over a public school. Some of it's in Delaware, it gets a little bit more complex personally, I can say, because of how our public education system is. We still have a lot of problems in Delaware based upon white flight from the city of Wilmington post desegregation in schools. So we have one of the highest rates of charter and private school enrollment in the United States, and we're the second smallest state.
So right, but then you run into the exact same issue there, where if you start chartering and private schooling these problems away, then instead of two kids in the same classroom who disagree, you have those kids at different schools learning different things. And
Yeah.
you still haven't solved the overarching problem, because one school may teach a view that may see, as you said, a very old Bible view of women should be, seen and not heard sort of stuff. That's healthy relationship. And then do you want your son dating that girl who's super submissive, and now your son is now in what you would probably consider a bad relationship because she learned it in school, right? So these complexities are good to talk about, but it should be acknowledged that they're super, super deep problems.
Yeah,
right?
these are societal. It's not just going to be solved by changing
you can
public
pontificate
education.
on YouTube like a bunch of jerks, but we should also remember that none of us really have an answer to the question. So that it's super complicated stuff.
And also, public school teachers, I know, I can't say for all charter and private because I don't have much of that information, but you're asking underpaid people to try and teach these kind of complex subjects. I think the first thing we should be doing, we have to try and handle these kind of things outside of a classroom as a society. But, then we also need to be treating our teachers as more than just glorified babysitters if we want them to take on these kind of complexities, because the fact of the matter is children your kids, even high schoolers, elementary, whatever age they are probably going to have questions. And then you're asking your teachers to come up with some really tough answers.
Well, I think I have maybe a more simple improvement that could be made on public high schools. In my opinion, I think that kids, because I actually do think there's some truth to what P. Mars was saying about school in a way is training you to be like a worker bee, just because of the schedule of waking up at like 7 a.m. and then going all the way till 4 p.m. And then some of these people would also have a job where they have to work too and do homework. And I feel like public high school students, they have to go to school for too long during the day, and they have to carry around too much weight in their backpacks. It's too much. The books it's too heavy, and it's not healthy, in my opinion.
Do you think structuring it more
getting
like
better
college would be
because
better?
of it's getting better because of the digital age. Like my students don't have textbooks anymore. It's all online.
Yeah. I mean, especially during the pandemic too, like my son, like, even though I ended up sending my son back to the classroom, just simply because my son is technically special needs and I wanted, him to get some in-person learning, and interaction with the teacher.
Well, I had an idea
a lot of it was all
about
Chromebooks for the whole year. So I mean, it's.
I remember feeling like Pavlov's dog, where they have like a bell ringing in between.
Oh gosh, yeah. There is. You know what? And here's the fact of the matter too. Like, there are some teachers that don't like their job. I remember my sophomore year, my math. Well, I do know teachers who genuinely love to teach. That
doesn't mean they like their job. Those are two different sentences.
There are some good teachers.
There are good teachers, but there are also a lot of bad teachers too. Like, I remember sophomore year math class walking out with my best friend and going and getting our vice principal. Mind you, whole different story of the building, other side of the building, because my teacher didn't have control of the class, and she was like, well, I don't care, basically. She's like, she was retiring at the end of that year, and it was just dumb. But like AJ, like, do you feel like maybe doing more of like a college type of schedule where it's like semesters, like classes over a semester, or like some public schools, like my school district, even did it back when I was in high school, but not with the whole student population. They called it block scheduling. So you would have like English and social studies, or English and science, first half of the year, and then you'd have like the other two main core subjects the other half.
Well, when I was a senior, I was able to have 2 off periods, and I stuck them right at the first 2 periods of the day so I could sleep in. I think that you shouldn't have to wait until 12th grade to have those off periods. I think they should be incorporated into more grades. And before, I remember back when I was in school, before they switched, or they were doing like online textbooks and laptops, I had an idea about how to sort of lighten the like textbook load. Because if you think about it, you in a class, you're only studying usually one chapter at a time. So carrying the entire textbook, you don't exactly need that. So I figured maybe you could have students have like, instead of a textbook, you have like a 3-ring binder where you have the teacher pass out that chapter for that section, and that way they just carry around the
Teachers
relevant
do that.
parts instead of the
Some
whole
teachers
book.
do exactly that.
Yeah.
In the classes I taught this last semester, the biology class, we didn't hand out the textbook because we didn't use it. In the anatomy class, we handed out the textbook, and we did use it. So because the textbook needed to be for homework, right? So the variety is important there. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing. I think, we all can kind of agree that there are different teaching styles. There are different learning styles. And there's also a lot of complexity on this issue because, education is handled very differently across all 50 states. Like every state kind of determines, what curriculum standards they're going to have. And then the school districts, have to, at the very least, meet that, from my general understanding. They have to meet that. And then some districts will go above and beyond. And typically those districts are like my original school district where I went for K through 12, because they are basically attracting a lot of higher income people now. Like I'm actually having a very hard time if I wanted to move back to my hometown area. I don't know. My only basic way to go back to my hometown area is to, if my parents will me their property. It's very expensive. And a lot of people move for a school district and it kind of becomes a thing.
I very much agree with that statement, Amaretto. And I think part of the reason why those school districts can do more is not necessarily because they're more wealthy. It's, I would argue, because wealthier people tend to care about their students' education more. So the parents are going to push for these better things for the students. Whereas a poor school district, maybe the parents care more about sports. So we need to have a good football jersey as opposed to a good textbook. Or I think that priority that comes from the parents, it comes from the community that enhances these issues.
Like, I think you see more of the glorified babysitter mindset, unfortunately, in a lot of areas where there are lower income people, because let's face it, a lot of us are overworked. Like, we're now seeing more and more people having to work 2 or 3 jobs just to live versus even 20 years ago. That wasn't necessarily the case. You would have people that would be able to support themselves on one job, and now you just don't really have that to the same extent. So you have a lot of parents that are overworked, and it's unfortunate. Like I've even seen the difference. Like now, mind you, the school district I'm in now doesn't have the best reputation. However, like my experience in the school district, even having a special needs child, has been excellent. Like I'm gonna be kind of sad to leave the school district, because I think this school district's actually improving so much more than when a lot of my friends my age were students there, in the school district. And the interaction with the teachers, the teachers have been wonderful. So I mean, and I know people who were in my home school district with special needs children who were not getting the same level of care and communication, and their children were falling behind and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's your experience and your mileage will definitely vary, for sure. And I definitely think that, we need to really put a greater emphasis on education and critical thinking and knowledge in general, no matter what your income is. I think, in America, we talk a good talk about, having pathways up, being able to hashtag hustle, hashtag girl boss, hashtag just working your way out of poverty. And I just don't think functionally with the way the world is now and how the education system is now, that's actually happening.
Well, I think one thing we haven't mentioned in the stream is capitalism, and that underpins all of the things that we've been talking about, obviously. And, you know, I feel like, you know, in America, people are talking about, oh, should there be a $15 minimum wage? I'm like, how about we start at like 30, like 35? Like it needs, like with inflation, 15 is not, I mean, it's good that it's going up. The fact that there are people fighting against or saying a $15 minimum wage is bad is ridiculous, because literally, like, the minimum wage has gone down. It's really more like $4 if you think about it.
I had something like this happen on my Facebook. One of my mom's sisters is a small business owner, and she's trying to, I basically put out on my legal name Facebook. I was like, yeah, here it goes. Because my aunt had been complaining on her Facebook about how she wrote our state governor trying to get him to discontinue the extra $300 because businesses can't find workers. Which, first off, like, as a little bit of a side note, I've been job hunting for the past month. That is BS. I have done more job interviews than I have ever done in my entire life. And I keep getting so much pushback because I can't be a 40+ hour a week worker bee because I have my child. And this is part of the problem we're seeing too, with a lot of women or, you know, femmes having problems returning to the workforce post-pandemic. So that's definitely, it's not just the minimum wage that needs to go up. We need to figure out childcare. You know, we need to, you know, it's not just with teacher, like, you know, public school K through 12. We also need to like put a greater, like, you know, importance on, you know, childcare teachers for centers and outside of your mandated K through 12 public education or charter or wherever, your preschool and everything else. We need to be treating these people better and paying them more.
Yeah, well, that's the funny thing that the pandemic has really shown is, you know, people are talking a lot about, oh, we love our essential workers. You know, basically people who work jobs that are considered shitty and low education and don't get paid very much. But when the pandemic hit and when these jobs are not available to be done, it's chaos. You know, if you don't have cashiers at the grocery store, if you don't have janitors, or you don't have like Uber drivers, or all of these low-paying jobs, then society freaking collapses, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe these people should be getting paid more and be treated with more respect than they have been getting.
Well, it's like on my Facebook post, like, I had family members that were coming. Actually, it's funny. So one of my best friends has her bachelor's from University of Pennsylvania, has, I think, 2 masters from University of Delaware. I think she's underpaid for what she is, but she makes okay money. She works for a corporate bank. But, you know, I'm like, you should be making like over $80,000 a year, and she's not. And I think, like, you know, in general, we're just
Mommy,
underpaid.
Can I please have another Lotus snack?
Yeah, you can have another one. Sorry, 6-year-old. But, you know, one of them, one of my other family members was getting into it with my friend, because my friend, mind you, she's like a moderate Democrat, but she's kind of starting to see some of why I say, like, you know, we need to have certain progressive policies need to be in play. So my cousin basically was like, if you want to, you know, higher wage, go back to school and stuff. I always had to be like, oh, so-and-so, she has a master's. And my friend just went off on him basically. And my friend, you know, put me in an odd position, but it's like my cousin hasn't said, he didn't reply to the rest of the thread, and they haven't said anything to me since. But at the same time, it's like, you have a lot of people that with that mindset that you need to go back to school, or, you know, these jobs, these low wage jobs are entry level and stuff. Well, first of all, if these are only meant for teenagers, why are these businesses open during school hours? You know, and then if you want to say that these people don't deserve to make a living wage, but you do because you had the financial means, and I mean, actually, yeah, financial means, because you know what, even if you took out a student loan, you still had the financial means to actually get a student loan, and not everybody does. But you still were willing to take on this burden. part of the reason I'm in my 30s and now just working on my bachelor's again is because I put off schooling for so long because I was afraid of student loan debt. And then I was about to go back to school, and then I got pregnant with little one.
I did the same thing because I graduated from high school and I was in college, but then I was having trouble truly deciding on a major where I'm like, I know this is what I want. So I was thinking, if I don't want to go to school and take classes for a major that I don't even like, that I'm probably going to change and then rack up student loan debt. And I think there are a lot of like people like maybe my age that are in their 30s that are like basically pretty much broke day to day, but I still think it's better to be broke than to have a shitload of debt, because that's like being broke and having negative money.
Yeah. And it's hard though, because like there's a part of me that wishes I had gone back sooner, because at least then I'd be ahead of the curve. But, I think what really, I kind of ended up just going back to school because I was like, it was basically because of the pandemic, because, I work in restaurant and hospitality, and the industry is not recovered. And now, like I said, and those are the jobs I've been interviewing for. And I have 13 years of restaurant experience, and nobody's like so far doesn't think I'm a good fit, because I have little one and because I can't work like certain full-time hours. It's just the way it is. But that's why a lot of people have traditionally gone into the restaurant industry, college students, single parents, because you can make full-time money with not full-time hours. But everything's kind of changing because of the pandemic. So I decided, you know what, I need to do something. I wasn't vaccinated at the last semester, or I'm sorry, fall of 2020, because there was nothing going on with the vaccine yet, publicly. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go back to school. And I did online schooling, and this past semester I got a 4.0. So I'm working towards it, but I needed the student loans to live. How bad is that? Because the way that the pandemic has affected unemployment and PUA, nobody was prepared for this. And I think this pandemic has critically highlighted how underfunded and just how messed up the systems are for some states. Gosh, I think Pennsylvania, where I was employed and where I had to file, they had actually paid a company to do an overhaul before the pandemic, and nothing was ever really done. And now they've just updated the system again. But, I filed in April. I didn't hear back anything on my first claim until July. And then, I filed for PUA after my unemployment denial, because they said I didn't try hard enough to find childcare for little one during a pandemic when nothing was open. So,
yeah, I was talking about earlier in the stream that before COVID started, I was going to an online school, and then I took a break when the whole pandemic thing started, and then around that time I started to re-enroll, but I didn't finish the process. And then the school it was weird because they started blowing up my phone all the time, calling me. And then the other day I get a letter in the mail that the FTC was suing my school because they hired some companies that were supposed to help people enroll in the college or sign up for the military or just get information about the school. And instead of doing that, they were
oh, you cut out, but that just sounds so bad. I'm like, that does not sound great. Yeah, it's, but I went back to school just because I needed and I was like, well, you know what? I've waited so long to get my degree. I might as well. But, I was getting hit up by different, I had actually also been exploring trade schools and stuff like that. And I'm still getting spam from these trade schools.
My
there you go.
Computer died.
And now there's two of you.
Yeah. my laptop died, so I got on my phone. No, I
Oh,
was saying, so the
The FTC.
they
Yeah.
sued my school, and then I got a check in the mail the other day because they said that I was part of the like lawsuit against them. So I got a refund, and so I got a pretty sizable check in the mail the other day that I wasn't expecting at all. Like I just opened this envelope. I'm like, wait, what?
I mean, that's good. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I guess if you, I mean, bank that. I mean, I would check and see if anything you took through that school would transfer to another institution. Because I mean, when the FTC kind of gets involved, that's kind of doesn't necessarily mean
It's
good
not the
things.
school. It's more of just this other like.
Oh,
gosh,
the outside firm that the school hired.
Yeah, like a firm they hired. I have the
I mean-
letter in the other room, but yeah.
I mean, as long as the
know
school
the
doesn't lose their
credits can transfer
accreditation
through-
and stuff. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean,
I know
hey,
Yeah, I know the credits will transfer because my mom went there and she was able to transfer them to a different school, and
That's
she got a business degree from there. So
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's good. I always am. This is like part of the thing I'm so worried about, especially because it's like I fall into one of the categories. I'm a low income person that's typically targeted by a lot of like, for-profit schools and stuff like that. So I feel it's like I got to do my extra research because it's I feel it's like you're one signature away from basically being on like the nightly news 4 years later or something like that. It's kind of crazy. Public education is not just crazy. I mean, college education and just how nuts academia has gotten. Like I was talking with Pat Lowinger a while ago, and he was basically saying it's like academia is like super competitive right now, and a younger person probably wouldn't stand a chance compared to someone like in Pat's generation, Pat's group, because they like colleges are finding ways to cut costs, and they also are finding ways to like not have to pay benefits out to people or to like basically
Okay.
make more money for the administration.
Yeah. Okay, I have the letter that they sent me. So it says the enclosed check is your share of a settlement between the Federal Trade Commission and Career Education Corp., which later changed its name to Perdoco, and CEC operated the name of my university, Colorado Technical University in Sanford Brown. CEC hired other companies to promote its schools. The FTC said that these companies use deceptive websites to collect people's contact information. The websites seem to offer help finding jobs, enlisting in the military, and getting government benefits. Instead, CEC used information collected by the websites to make high-pressure sales calls to market its schools. So according to our records, you responded to one of these misleading websites, and you were entitled to a payment from this settlement. So they sent me a check for like $1,600 in the mail.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks that happened, in general, but I mean, it's good that you got that money.
Yeah, because I was
wow.
not expecting that at all. And the funny thing was, the letter was just sitting on my countertop for like several days, and then I looked and I was like, I saw that it was FTC versus something, and I was like, oh, that's a lawsuit. I better open this. And then I was like, oh shit. When I saw that, I was like, okay, so I'm sure that this is going to be like a settlement check for like $11. But then I opened it, I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's a pretty good size settlement check. Usually, from everything I've heard, you don't usually see that much. So, I mean, that's great that you got that, So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to bank that, I mean, there you go. That's what I'm trying to do. I finally did get some. It's not all of the compensation I'm probably due for PUA. I need to next week. I keep putting it off trying to get on the phones with them because it's so draining. Like I've been fighting actively since July of last year. And even so, I'd say especially October to February of this year. So October 2020 to February of this year, it takes a lot out of you trying to deal with anything government or anything where it's like your livelihood or your financial stability is on the line. And this is why I always fight back when people are like, yeah, people on welfare and Medicaid and stuff are lazy. And I'm like, you have no idea what it takes to actually get help that you need. And SSI, that's like a whole other ballgame too. Anybody that needs Social Security, SSD, Social Security Disability, that's an even
Oh yeah,
bigger
it's like,
hurdle.
good luck getting approved for that.
Yeah, and we need, like, honestly, like, you know, going back to, like, you know, the minimum wage, we also need to really be reforming how we're looking at, you know, SSD and SSI and stuff like that for our elderly and our, you know, our disabled, you know, peers, because it's nuts. Like, I should technically qualify for SSD. I would have a hard time getting it in my state. Delaware is one of the hardest states to get it in. But if I went over the line to New Jersey, I would probably have a way more easier time getting it. And that's, you know, nuts that, you know, you're basically trying to have people decide whether or not it's better to be poor in one state versus poor in another, and trying to make these big decisions. You know, like a lot of people who are on SSD who are, you know, in relationships can't even get married to one another. You can't have savings over $2,000 or something like that. Like, there's a lot of stress that comes with being, you know, disabled or lower income that I think we're just not, you know, encountering, you know, because it's that rugged individualism here in American culture. But what happens when you don't even have boots to pull bootstraps up on? Or when, you know, maybe you're missing a boot? You know what I'm saying? Or your boot has holes and it's very, very close to, like, just not even providing any protection or assistance. You know what I'm saying?
Or you have athlete's foot.
I mean, that too. Like, that's not pleasant. You know, but it's crazy to me, you know, and like Delaware just passed, I think, a $15 minimum wage, but the $15 is going in increments, which I agree with. However, it's going to not be $15 until I think 2024 or 2025. And that's just way too long. At least, like, I feel we need to be doing something about actually closing tax loopholes, which I've actually talked with a conservative here that I've known for over a decade, that is friends with my family. And like, I've actually had this discussion, you know, her parents are small business owners. And, you know, she was like, you know, my parents paid like $60K in taxes. And that's just, I think, personal. She's like, how much more do you want them to pay? And I'm like, well, I think we need to look at a lot of people with larger incomes. Like, your parents, like, yes, you're wealthy. I'm not saying that I'm one of, like, the leftists who are like, I'm not saying we can't have any wealthy people. I'm just very concerned that we have so many people that don't have money and so few people that have more of it. Like, the insane amounts. Like, how much personal tax has Jeff Bezos paid? How much tax? Amazon pays effectively no corporate tax.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Walmart basically uses the federal government and the state governments to basically subsidize their poor wages. There's actually been, my gosh, and this has been going on forever, they encourage their employees to go file for welfare and food stamps and Medicaid and stuff like that. So how many bad people or people who basically are just greedy and trying to manipulate the system have gotten rich off of the backs of others? And that's kind of where I have a problem. Like, I'm not saying that we can't have any hardworking people who have accumulated wealth at all. But, you know, I acknowledge that there are some leftists who would say that I'm wrong about that. However, I think we need to definitely go at this with an approach of closing, like, corporate tax loopholes and stuff like that. You know, and I think, and that's actually something, like I said, a conservative agreed with me on. Now, like, you know, not all conservatives are like, you know, Trump Republicans. Like, this conservative, she's actually thinks gay marriage is okay. Like, you know, she doesn't believe in discriminating against people for their sexuality and stuff like that, just an example. But I think those are the kind of conversations that we have to look at, and where we can agree and find ways to help fix the problems that exist. You know, we've got to try and figure out how to make things better. I think just saying, oh, this is the way it is, you know, is a bad thing. And, you know, there's a lot of people that say, well, I make $15 an hour now, I'm not going to get more money. And it's like, well, no, you should be getting a higher wage too. EMTs, they should be making way more money than what they do. Everybody should, in general. It's the majority of the people who are, you know, making, you know, under $30 an hour right now probably need to be making more as well. It's, you know, it's just, it's insane how much people have been pitted against one another. It's literally, you're pitting people like at the bottom, the middle and the bottom against one another to kind of like, you know, rip at their own throats. And the people who have a lot of money are just still sipping their tea and just like, yeah, they're still going at it, like without a care in the world. So
Yeah, they should end the wars in the Middle East and then take that money and put it into education and pay teachers more and then pay people more for the jobs they do.
yeah,
Because they
Like-
could literally pay everybody a living wage if they just took the money if they took a fraction of the defense budget, they could pay everybody in America a living wage and give them Medicare.
yeah. I mean, and it's crazy, you know, we've become, and I'm not saying that individualism is necessarily a bad thing, but I think, you know, when you have it as a dog eat dog, you know, I like competition. I'm a very competitive person. I play fighting games. Like I, you know, tried very hard in school. I liked spelling bee, geography bee, you know, I can be competitive. I think part of the problem is when you're using that spirit of competitiveness to foster a lack of empathy and a lack of care for other people, as long as, you know, encouraging that to become a habit of stepping over people to better your own personal situation without a care. It's almost like, you know, going into like psychopathy and sociopathy and stuff like that. Like that's where I kind of have a problem. And it just definitely needs to, you know, switch around. But, you know, sorry to like kind of like make this social justice hour. I didn't really intend to do that. I just think we kind of got on some interesting topics.
Yeah, it's just kind of where the conversation went. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end it here.
Amaretto, you got a channel?
I do. I don't have any content up on it yet. And
Do you
I
plan on
apologize to.
contenting it?
Yes, I do. And also, I do apologize. I think I probably realized you guys have been hearing my keyboard, my good old mechanical keyboard. I am so sorry. I need to get better
didn't
about.
hear that.
I didn't hear anything.
Okay, cool. I think I was like typing once or twice and I realized I wasn't muted. So I apologize. I'm trying to get better about that. The group, whenever I'm on, you know, Amy's channel, usually I get a little bit more flack for my keyboard.
Yeah, I mean, if you got a channel, I can. If you end up doing stuff with it, you know, let me know. I like subbing people like that. So I'm sure I'll see on Amy's channel. But I'm there a lot. So
Is
Yeah,
she
no.
streaming tonight?
I'm trying to figure that out. Because what did she say earlier? I thought she said something. Let me see. I texted her earlier and I asked.
well, either way, I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna
Okay.
say bye on camera because it apparently upsets
Yeah.
Atheist Junior.
Okay.
so.
Well, I'm gonna end the stream here, guys. So yeah, thank you to the people in the chat, and all right, I'll see you guys on the next video.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
it was good talking.